And now, a passage from The City of Austin from 1839 to 1865 by Alex W. Terrell. The ground on which the city of Austin is built was selected as the proper place for the capital of the Republic of Texas in 1839, 6 years before annexation to the United States. How it happened that the seat of government was thus located, what public houses were then built for the Republic, when and how they were erected, and other matters of public interest connected with the early history of Austin should be made known to this generation before a knowledge of them fades into vague tradition. Many events that illustrate the conditions that surrounded the settlers on the upper Colorado over 70 years ago were of deep interest to them, but have never been recorded on the elevated plane of general history. When I moved to Austin 58 years ago, nearly all of the pioneer citizens of Austin's colony were living. Many of them I knew, as I did also all the presidents of the Republic and governors of the state, except Anson Jones. General Lamar, in the autumn of 1837 or 1838, weary with official duties, came to the upper Colorado on a buffalo hunt. He procured an escort of 6 rangers at the old fort that stood in Fort Prairie, 6 miles below where Austin now is. Among them were James O. Rice and Willis Avery, both of whom long afterwards became my clients. From them, and from the Reverend Edward Fontaine, a great-grandson of Patrick Henry, then the Episcopal minister in Austin, who for years was my friend and neighbor, I learned what I am about to state regarding Lamar's buffalo hunt and other matters. Jacob Harrell was then the only white frontier settler where Austin is located, and no white man lived on the waters of the Colorado above him. His cabin and a stockade made of split logs to protect his horses from the Indians were built at the mouth of Shoal Creek, near the river ford. There Lamar and Fontaine, who was his private secretary, and their ranger escort camped for the night, and were awakened next morning early by Jake Harrell's little son, who told them that the prairie was full of buffalo. Lamar and his men were soon in the saddle, and after killing all the buffalo they wanted, were assembled by a recall sounded by the bugler on the very hill where now stands the state capitol building. Lamar, while looking from that hill on the valley covered with wild rye, the mountains up the river, and the charming view to the south, remarked, "This should be the seat of future empire." The night before, Harrell had told Lamar that he had gone up the Colorado for 30 miles in the dark of the moon, when he could go with safety, for Indians always made their forays in the light of the moon, that he had not found a valley as big as a saddle blanket, that the mountains were covered with cedar, and that he had found in abundance grindstone rocks and speckled rock that would strike fire. General Lamar was a man of culture, and then knew that he was near an igneous or primary geological formation which no one then believed existed in Texas. Mr. Fontaine thought the abundance of stone and wood for building, and the natural beauty of the location was at the northern limit of the alluvial valley of the Colorado, inspired the remark of General Lamar. Willis Avery, whose posterity still live in Texas, told me that Lamar killed on that hunt with his holster pistol near where the Avenue Hotel now stands the largest buffalo bull he ever saw. When afterwards, in 1839, Lamar was president, he approved the Act of Congress of January 16, 1839, which provided for the appointment of commissioners to select a site for the capital. He appointed among them A.C. Horton, whom I knew well, and instructed them to go to Jake Harrell's cabin and look carefully at that location. Fontaine was present when the president talked to the commissioners and thought that Lamar's admiration of the ground near Harrell's cabin had much to do with the report of the commissioners. A few cabins had been built on the river 2.5 miles below Harrell's cabin, and they called the place Montopolis. The site selected for the capital extended below and above that place so as to include Harrell's cabin. 2 or 3 other settlers had built their cabins in 1839 at the river ford near Harrell's, and they called the place Waterloo. The Congress, mindful of the exalted character and patriotic service of Stephen F. Austin, provided in Section 2 of the Act to appoint commissioners as follows. Section 2. Be it further enacted that the name of said site shall be the City of Austin. The first section of the Act required that the site for the capital should be selected at some point between the rivers Trinidad and Colorado, and above the San Antonio Road. That road was then a noted trail, which was often called for in the early prairie surveys of Travis and other counties. It started from a mission church in Louisiana and had been traveled for over 100 years by mission priests, led by an intendant and protected by an escort of Spanish cavalry in their annual visitations of the missions of San Jose, Concepcion, and San Juan near San Antonio. Then they visited the mission of the San Saba until after the priests there were massacred by the Indians. The annual visitations continued to the missions at El Paso, onto the Gila River in Mexico, and terminated at the missions in California. That old San Antonio Trail crossed the Colorado 18 miles below Austin before the town of Bastrop was built. After Bastrop was settled, it crossed the Colorado at that point. Its location could be traced across Texas in many places as late as 1852. After selecting the ground for the capital, the commissioners surveyed 1 mile square, laying it off in blocks and lots between Shoal Creek and Waller Creek in designated locations for the public buildings. The report to Congress was made on April 13, 1839, and so rapidly was the work of building pushed that in October 1839, houses for the accommodation of most of the various departments of government had been erected. The United States Census of 1850, taken 5 years after annexation, gave for Austin a population of 629. 2 years after that, I first saw the city, and then the population did not, I think, exceed 800. The slowness of its growth resulted not only from the fact that it was on the very border of the upper settlements and exposed at all times to Mexican invasions and Indian forays, but because of continued opposition from prominent public men and from other sections of the Republic to the location. Commissioners had been appointed 3 times by as many sessions of Congress to locate a state capital. The first commission was created under a resolution offered by Thomas J. Rusk in October 1837, then a man of great influence and afterwards a colleague of General Houston in the United States Senate. He was a member of the House from eastern Texas, and his influence prevailed to incorporate in the first act to select a seat of government the provision that the place chosen should not be over 20 miles north of the San Antonio Road. In this policy of going north of the San Antonio Road, General Houston never concurred. No mention was made of the San Antonio Road in the joint resolution under which the second set of commissioners were appointed, though President Houston vetoed a bill which located the seat of government under the report of the commissioners on the Colorado River below LaGrange, and Congress continued for a time at Houston. But the Act of January 14, 1839, approved by President Lamar, did provide for the location north of the San Antonio Road and shows that the influence of eastern Texas, combined with the west, led by General Ed Burleson and John Caldwell, was too strong for those who desired the seat of government to be established in Houston or at Old Washington on the Brazos. Edwin Waller, protected by a company of armed citizens, began in Austin the work of building houses for the use of the Republic of Texas in May 1839. And though no lumber mill had been established to furnish plank, houses had been built by October 1839 in which 40 wagon loads of archives, books, paper, and furniture of the Republic were stored. It was a proud day for the citizens of Austin when on the 17th day of October 1839, President Lamar and his cabinet reached there with a cavalcade, at the head of which was Albert Sidney Johnson and Colonel Edward Burleson. A bugler heralded their approach. That night they enjoyed in the Bullock Hotel, kept then by Mrs. Eberly, a sumptuous repast. Mrs. Eberly was a sister of Colonel Bailey Peyton, of Mexican War celebrity in 1846, and who represented General Jackson's district in Congress. Mrs. Eberly became a great favorite with the early settlers of Austin on account of her heroic conduct when the effort was made to remove the archives. Sam Houston and San Jacinto, they will be remembered as long as Texas possesses a single free man. General Albert Sidney Johnson, a scholar, a soldier, and a gentleman, the highest qualities a man can possess. The memory of Stephen F. Austin. Whatever may be the pretensions of others to the paternity of Texas, we recognize him alone as the father of this republic. The houses were generally built of hewed logs, being double log houses with a passage between. The plank for building was sawed near Bastrop. Pine logs were squared with a broad axe and then placed on a scaffold. One man on the top of the log and another below, after lining the log, sawed the plank with a whipsaw. Mr. J.W. Darlington, now 90 years old, with mind and memory well preserved, assisted in hauling the plank to Austin. He now lives in Austin. All the public houses were covered with split boards, rived by hand with a froe. Instead of being nailed, they were at first weighted down and held in place by straight logs. After a time, the houses were covered with shingles, which were nailed on. A double log house with a passage between was built in 1839 on the east side of Congress Avenue at its intersection with 8th Street on the southwest corner of Block 97, above the present Avenue Hotel, and retired about 15 paces from Congress Avenue. There, Lamar, Houston, and Anson Jones, as presidents, had their business office. There, Houston received M. de Saligny, the minister of France to Texas, and their governors J. Pinckney Henderson, Wood, Bell, and Pease had their offices until 1855. Governor Bell occupied it when I reached Austin in 1852.